I love the new breed of mums.
Yeah.
They are so aware, they know
So
what they
true.
want.
We are going ahead and living our lives completely. We're not stopping ourselves. We're not saying that, okay, my career is over, or my ambitions are over, or my hobbies are over in general. And we are doing actually all of it and doing it really well.
Women were like, I have a desire now. My kid is older. I do want to go back. I just don't know how.
I've never been a A plus performer. You know, I've only become a A plus performer after I became a mum.
This is one aspect of your life. Your kid is one aspect, your work is one aspect. Do not compromise one for the other. It is a village. At the end of the day, it will take so many people to make this work for you if that's the ambition that you carry.
Hearing this, I almost had goosebumps. Hi everyone, welcome to another episode of our podcast, The Parent Code. Today I have someone very special here with me, Niharika. She is the founder of the Cumin Co. They are a new age cookware brand. The products are designed with a lot of intent, with a lot of differentiation, with a lot of what's good for you in mind. And we have been eyeing those products for a while now, so I'm sure we are going to be customers ourselves soon. But Niharika is going to be talking about something very different, something very close to her heart. We are going to be talking about mums getting back to work and a lot more around it. I will let Niharika reveal all of these things for us. So, hi Niharika,
Awesome.
how are you?
Thanks so much, Akriti. Thanks so much for kind of getting us on the show. And by the way, kudos of what you built with Loopie. As I was telling you yesterday, I wish these were the products that were there when I had my little one. Very, very discerning customers, very, very discerning parents, a lot of research.
Yeah.
Felt like there's nothing like this in the market. So kudos for such a fantastic product.
Thank you so much.
Yeah.
I think one of the causes which is very close to both you and me is this modern way of parenting, the new age parents, how we are going ahead and living our lives completely. We're not stopping ourselves. We're not saying that, okay, my career is over, or my ambitions are over, or my hobbies are over in general. And we are doing actually all of it and doing it really well. I also know that previously, a while back, you were very actively doing things to make sure that you could create a supporting system for mums. Would you want to talk a little bit more about it?
Sure. So actually that project, that gig as I call it, was my first sort of soft foray into entrepreneurship of sorts.
Right.
So very traditional career background, been with a bunch of corporates. It was after I became a mom that I saw very corporate and work in general in a very, very different light. This was I think around 2020-ish when this sort of idea started kind of coming to me. So I had my kid in 2019.
And sorry, before 2019,
Yes.
how many years you had already been working?
So almost about 7-8 years.
7 years.
Started
You were
working
already
in
working.
11, yes.
You had an
Yeah.
established career, and then you became a mum. Okay.
The idea was never to say be at a certain milestone in our journey and then have a kid. We wanted the kid to be part of the journey. We're very, very sure.
Yeah.
We love kids in general, so we knew that we'll have a baby, and she was born a couple of years, 2-3 years after
Right.
our marriage. So I think the starting point was started interacting, engaging with a lot of mums. I never stopped working. I went like after my mat leave, kind of gradually eased into it. Also being a COVID mum, I didn't necessarily have to go back to work, so that was honestly something that really helped in easing in the journey a lot more.
That's true, but I think
Yeah.
for COVID mums, I know a lot of my friends also who are COVID mums. Yes, of course, it eased the journey. You were able to get a lot of time. Like for me, I did not even take a mat break because I was just starting Loopie at that point of time. But I also think that there was a lot more that you were doing, constantly being with the baby and constantly working, not really being able to segregate both of the things. That's also not easy, right?
Yeah, so I think one of the things that I felt like we did well, kind of conscious, some unconscious, was we realized two things. We realized our individual ambitions, and I say we as me and my husband together.
Right.
We honestly never viewed this as a very isolated endeavor.
Right.
So we were very sure that we are parenting and we're doing this together, which then meant that if I had to continue and this journey was something that we knew we wanted to do, we had to build the right sort of, let's say, the building blocks of ensuring things were in place. We really did have a very, very large support system, and I really kind of credit a lot of that to that. I have my folks around, I have my husband folks around, and I've kind of done the segregation. I still continue to do that a lot more now that there's a lot more investment that goes in a setup which is outside of work, which is delegating things which not necessarily are not mission critical, which doesn't like take away from my
I
joy of parenting, so to speak.
I know what you
but
mean, yeah.
are good to take help of, and obviously we'll speak more about that.
Yeah. I think one of the things, in fact, just the contrary thing that happened with me was, I think it happens with many people. It happens with dads who do not get maternity or paternity leaves. Is if I would go to office, and the fact that for those 2-3 hours I started working in a manner that I would be 3 hours, 4 hours in office early on, and those 3-4 hours I would be very happy. It's a very contradictory thing to say, but I am with the baby, and my baby is just hardly newborn, right? 15 days, 20 days, 30 days, and all. But the fact that I could come to office for those 3-4 hours and be myself 100% would also give me a great sense of joy. And then when I would go back home, I would be more present. Going to office helped me
Yeah,
in
no,
my own journey.
I couldn't agree more. See, I feel like these are also important decisions which allow you to complete yourself. I feel like if you're not a complete individual yourself, you can't parent well. You have to be a happy individual. You have to be a happy wife to
Right.
be able to be a happy mother. Right?
Yeah.
At the end of the day, a lot of that joy kind of comes out. And that's very important to make sure that one aspect of life doesn't compromise with the other. And there's something extremely beautiful. By the way, I've come from a very highly matriarchal sort of society, so to speak. I have a very, very strong mother. And I
Yeah.
remember I was having this conversation with her after my kid was born to say, oh my
Yeah.
God, so much love is coming out. I think I'm going to step off the, pedal. And I had that conversation with her where she said, Niharika, you have to remember, work is one aspect of your life, as is your kid. And there are different aspects
Wow.
of your life. You have a
Wow.
house, you have family. My mother has a very, very large friend circle. I feel like she's a very complete individual, and she was very clear. I think this was month 5 or 6 of being a mother, and she said, Niharika, you have to be very sure that this is one aspect of your life. Your kid is one aspect, your work is one aspect. Do not compromise one for the other, because in the longer run, you will feel that something is
amazing.
incomplete.
That's
and I
so
felt
amazing.
like that was very, very crucial for me to define what sort of a mother I was going to be later.
Yeah. No, I think completely agree. In fact, I grew up in fairly small towns, and in those towns, you wouldn't have a lot of women really working or having those kind of examples. But my mom would be one of the few who was working. So I've always seen a working mother. We would, in fact, come home earlier than her, because so we would come home, we would have our lunch, and my mom would come post that, which was very different from what I would see amongst other friends and their families. And now that I look back, I think I'm very proud of it. I'm very proud of that. I could see that my mom was always, and still is, she has been careful about herself also. So, for example, if she likes to go to a place, she has been vocal about this, that, okay, I want to do this. I'm not going to do everything for you.
Yeah.
The fact that she did things for herself gave me the self-worth to feel that, okay, I can also do things for myself. So, it kind of creates like a large example set, and like you were saying, you become a happier person, and your child also sees that what can you do for yourself, what are you allowed to do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I feel like that ecosystem honestly has a huge role to play in how motherhood is viewed, how is working post-motherhood is viewed. Western countries, most people do go back to work, whether out of necessity or whatever, but they do go back to work, and there are structures in place to let a woman choose, and that's really, really important, right? Some of it, like in my case, we did have a lot of family around, a lot of people don't.
Yeah.
But should that be a reason why a woman says, raging career, fantastic capability, but should that be a reason why if she wants she's not, or not able to go back, should not be a reason. So I feel like while there are organic options that exist, there needs to be ecosystem that exists in general for a woman to have that choice to say, great, if I want to I should, but if I
That's
don't
great.
want to, I can opt for that as well.
Yeah. No, great. Come back to that point where you said that you started interacting a lot with your mothers of
The peer group. So
Yeah,
like
the
a very
peer
different sort of a peer group, and these conversations started coming in. But this was actually once my little one started going to play school, that I started engaging with a lot
So
of
she must
these.
be like what, around 1, 2?
She was around two-ish,
Two-ish
when
at that
she
time.
started going,
Yeah.
right? And then we started having conversation where women were very amused that I was working, right? And they were like, oh, you're working, I didn't realize. Amazed at how the conversation, and one would not assume, I didn't want to be very presumptuous, but like when they spoke of what they did, when I got to know of the backgrounds, I was very amazed at how everyone had taken that choice to step back, and that's where a lot of these conversations started coming. So then I started figuring that, this is probably there is something that I can do to help. There's something like, in general, I've been a very big proponent of women in general being part of the workforce. And I was like, perhaps this is a very specific requirement which is there. Women who've stepped off the workforce because of a kid, And then gradually what the program turned out to be was just people who want to return back to work. It then became very gender agnostic, by the way. And I figured there are a lot of
That's
other
nice.
people, a lot
That's
of
nice.
fathers also. I know a
Yeah.
lot of fathers, and gradually became part of the community who had left work because the wives were the ones carrying forward, and men were the one who decided to take a step back and wanted to get back to work.
And what would be the reason for these people who, let's say, have stepped away from work for 1-2 years? What's the resistance to go back to work?
See, I think why they left is more important than them wanting to get back. And I
Okay.
feel like these are two kind of different challenges. Most
Okay.
of them left off, to be very honest, because of support system. Most of them were people from, say, different towns, settled in Delhi, don't have a lot of family around them. There's also a lot of, I would feel, your childcare or daycare is not seen in a very positive light as yet. There is still like a lot of misconception about it in general. So a lot of people are very resistant to taking options like those. And I don't know people who said that I stepped off because I just wanted to take care of the child. A lot of them we wanted to gradually ease back into it, but then we settle into this life. It just became more and more difficult because see, as a kid grows older, the requirements increase. It's not the latter, in all fairness. And you have a kid, you know that's
True,
too.
absolutely.
The requirement, the time is increasing, right? So it became difficult for them to step back because of honestly just the one issue, which is the absence of a support system in any shape or form.
I think what also ends up happening is that if you are more present, the more you are with the baby, the more difficult it is for the baby to be without you. And seeing your baby struggle without you becomes very difficult then for the parents to, put your child in that kind of a situation. But let's say if you actually start this early, at a age where the child actually doesn't also realize as much early on, so then that whole system kind of sets. That expectation setting with the child also happens quite easily.
Yeah, one of the interesting things of this, and you're very right in saying, see, for a very long time, so by the way, I went back to work officially to a physical office when my kid was around a little shy of 3.5. That was the first time I stepped in office, right? Which is a very different journey. And I never stopped working. I was
Yeah.
at Meta at that point in time. By the way, I think these large companies really have cracked one thing really well, which is how to really accommodate people who want to be at different journeys in their stages in their career, which definitely is one. So,
Yeah.
hats off and kudos to Meta to have such fantastic processes in place. By the way, my husband was in Zomato at that point in time,
Yeah.
and they had just rolled back to the 6-month paternity leave. They were the
Wow.
very first organization. We lucked out.
Yeah,
We were the very
yeah.
first batch. We just had a kid when we got to know that this sort of program exists. But kind of coming back to the sort of entire point was pretty much around the fact that this sort of flexibility existed in those kind of organizations, right? And this kind of made me realize that people are viewing work very singularly as well. We started figuring a lot more of what does gig economy mean, right? Think of 2020, 21. These are very different days from what it is right now.
Right.
People didn't take to it very well to say working from home. Remote was an option that started happening post-COVID. It wasn't necessarily a de facto, which has become now, wasn't the case before. So then we started exploring options like these. But women were seeking that level of flexibility. For the first 2 years, the child and kid has to be around you. For the first 3 years also, perhaps. Then you need a setup where, say, short period of time, go to office, come back. Or, say, giving you that quality of work within home itself. So these were options we had to start exploring as well.
I'm just thinking from an organization's point of view, and also now that because I'm an entrepreneur, you're also an entrepreneur, that let's say if you have to create this kind of a flexibility for 2, 3, 4 years, isn't it much for the company?
See, the companies that we worked very closely with, there were two things that I kind of realized. One is what are you losing if you don't have this, right? If you look at it as a purely commercial and a business standpoint, what do you not get if you don't have processes like these, right? What kind of quality of talent do you end up losing? What is your signaling as, let's say, an employee-friendly organization?
Yeah.
See, in a smaller organization and setup, and in all transparency, there is a very different sort of a rhythm of work, right? Which will be set by you as a founder, owner, proprietor. In a larger organization, ensuring the employees view you in a certain way becomes extremely crucial, right? So what we started figuring out that there was a lot of tech talent that they were losing because of this, and there were one company in specific that because of the fact that they didn't have a return to work women program that existed, a lot of women decided to actually start leaving work a lot sooner. So you're not leaving a job when you say, oh, I want to, or I've had a kid, you know that it's going to be inflexible and you know you made a decision. So they started stepping back a couple of years before, which is not a great place to be. And think of the time that a lot of average Indian women are having kid, anywhere between, say, like the
prime of their
yeah,
careers
the prime
also,
of the
actually.
years, anywhere
Yeah.
between 27, 28,
Yeah.
all the way to 34, 35, that
Yeah.
bracket. And that's when you're doing the best quality work itself as well, right?
And what what was like in simple terms, what was return to work as a, what were the major policy changes from a org's perspective? Maybe what you guys were influencing, or more than that, what exists today?
So, three things. One is the most basic thing was fractional work, right? Work was always 8 hours, 9 hours. We instituted the concept of a shorter duration work. We said that be okay with the fact that somebody's working first half, somebody's working 3 days in a week, stuff like that, right? That flexibility of saying Monday to Friday, 5 days work is a setup which might necessarily not be flexible for somebody like those. And a lot of people opted for first half working, second half working. So we instituted that as a first option. The second one was a lot of work is also short term. Right? There are consultants, there are projects. This is a bunch of, let's say, workforce which is extremely highly skilled. They're not losing their skill. They have just taken a pause for a period of whatever, could be 6 months to a year and a half. They're extremely highly skilled bunch of people, and my personal view, extremely sharp in their output. I feel like you have finite number of hours. You want to spend your time with your kid.
No, actually,
you'll be very efficient at what you do, right? And I felt that about myself as a mother after. So very high quality resource, looking for a lot of flexibility, but you have these requirements for a short-term period, 6-month period, 8-month period. And then if that flexibility works for both you in the organization and the individual, then you finally absorb. So we started working on a lot of project basis requirement for these return to work women as well. What we also started doing with, very happy with at least 2 organizations, is then we started instituting part of your workforce will be returned to work. Right, so like a percentage, and it's okay to be a 1%, and that's fine. But you're ensuring that you're bringing kind of representation back and saying that if there are a bunch of women who want 1% of your hiring, say if you hire whatever number, some of these women, some of these people will be returned to work.
And I think they maybe are somewhere also driven a lot more, because you have this key. Okay, I haven't worked for maybe 1 or 2 years, and there is just so much I want to do, so much I can do. So yeah, I have a very small set of an example. But that at least makes a lot of sense. Starting fractional number of hours.
Very right. Going. So I have 2 women in my organization now who are mothers, who are very, very young kids. I think one of them has 2.5, one of them has a little shy of a year and a half. Extremely driven. They are very sure in saying, I will punch out at a certain time, because one of them is still feeding and she has to get back. But they are so efficient in that period of time. Like whatever, and you will see people coasting around, and you'll see people pushing off things to a little later. But I see these women knowing that they have finite number of hours, they need to do whatever they have to do at that point in time. They also are in a very, very high growth organization at this point, which means that you just can't take the 5 things you have. Let me start off the 2 others, right? So I see that level of efficiency and time management to be excellent.
Very high.
With these
I
2.
agree. I think in this other friend of mine that I was speaking to, she was also telling me now her kids are, one of them is 6 years and the other one is 2.5 years. So she makes sure that she's in the office by 8:30. She checks out by 4. And during that time, of course, she has killed it. She's done everything. And then once her kids have fallen asleep, then she logs back in, because she also has a US office. But she says that that time for me, that evening time, is so sacrosanct that actually defines everything else. And she's able to, I think one of the things that stayed with me, 2 years back we were having this conversation, and she said, Akriti, I have never been a A+ performer. I have only become a A+ performer after I became a mum. So before that I was always a A performer, etc. But I have become excellent from the time I have become a mum. I have actually cut down my hours, and I'm delivering 2x, 3x of whatever I was before.
No, and to be very honest, if I can, I love the new breed of mums.
Yeah.
They are so aware, they know what they want.
Yeah.
They know what they should be trading off. So for us, a very large part at Cumin Co is women, right? Like if you think of it in terms of a customer base, fairly large representation, and we have a lot of these conversations fairly constantly. So we do these small focused cohort groups where we have, a bunch of different kind of people come and have those conversations. And the one theme that I hear consistently from everybody is the fact that I will not compromise. I want to make sure. Then we keep asking, like, why Cumin Co? They will say, I don't want to compromise. I know I'm read enough to know that some things are right, they are not wrong. I'm also okay saying that I might not be in the kitchen because I'm working, I'm spending that time, but I don't want to compromise the quality for my kid. And those are the conversations we love. And we figure that we have a very traditional view of what a mother is, right? And that thing that we keep rolling back to is, maa ke haath ka khana and ghar ka khana, and that definition has changed. So when we're thinking of a campaign around those lines, we said, no, I don't think it stands anymore. That's not that motherhood. Mothers are very different now, and they're savvy, they're smart, they're working, they know how to delegate. navigate. They know that they might not be in the kitchen, so they have to be more conscious still, but they still want to make the right choice. So I love how, women in general are making these decisions.
No, you're absolutely, I think, we're absolutely, on page with it, with you. In fact, in my house, so I don't enjoy cooking. I've never enjoyed cooking. I know how to cook as a survival skill, but I don't enjoy it. My husband, on the contrary, enjoys cooking. So if any point of the day, for whatever reason, we don't have help, it will be him who will be cooking. It won't be me. And fundamentally, because we like it or we don't like it, I think that has become the reason. So from those perspectives, yes, I think choices are clearer. We are more sure of what we want. We are able to. I think we are also. Of course, our partners have stepped up big time. I mean, our partners are very different from what they used to be traditionally. But I think that's also happening because both the partners are very clear about what I want and they're very vocal about it. You know what, I want to, let's say, pursue this. So, okay, I'm going to support you for this. And the other person can say that, okay, I want to pursue for this. And maybe you have to step up your game here. So I think I love those... those kind of thoughts and those kind of conversations wherein you're actually talking about the fundamentals. You're not talking about anything which doesn't make sense at all.
We made some decisions which were just in alignment to make sure that we are young parents. We love our kid. We love to spend a lot more time. But we have to ensure that we build our business while being very tuned in parents. We got an office relatively closer to home. The kid will fall sick. You have to run back. We made sure that we've given her this sort of free access to say, you're feeling uncomfortable, you're feeling down, you feel like we're stretching too much in the office, come to the office. Yeah. We have a little space where she comes, she rests, she looks around, she knows most of the people in my office now, and then she'll go back.
And so you need cool to have, office folks like that. I mean, Rima also comes to office and she knows everybody in the team and the team is so nice to her. So you know that she's at a safe space.
Correct. So, and would this be the way women work and look at workforce perhaps a couple of years ago? Perhaps the answer is not. You would have a very regimental view. So then kind of tying in back to the point that if women have to work, and if women have to work in a way that's meaningful and contributing, you have to be flexible in figuring out what that means. Yeah. That definition of a workforce, that definition of a partner, that definition of corporate policy, all of that has to be relooked at again. Correct. Then you are doing a good job. Otherwise, it's just like paperwork, a nice mail policy sitting somewhere in an inbox.
That doesn't make sense, actually. No, you're right. So let's talk about the very basic stuff. If, let's say, you are expecting mom, you're a nuclear family. I'm talking about a persona which is many of us, right? You're a nuclear family, you are, to say an immigrant, you have come from some other town and you're now settled in some other city, so you don't have a lot of family around, etc., etc. What should you start thinking about? What kind of system should you set? What kind of discussion should you have with your partner? How do you do the fundamentals?
Yeah, so I think one thing, and I think should have perhaps mentioned it earlier, I feel like a lot of a lack of education on what a kid demands comes because we have no idea, and I that's one thing I must credit my sort of my sort of gynac, that she told me that kids will take a lot of time. My pediat also, and they were like very they same hospital, right? So they communicated that things will take time. It will be a tiresome process, and these are things that have to be told, right? Like, I don't know, this is not a podcast for that, but stuff like in general lactation and stuff like that. It's a process that nobody tells you about, right? And then you have these very vague ideas of how much time and effort it will be, either a lot or a lot less, right? So I feel like a lot of that education for sure should be there. Like, I don't know
being more and more prepared about it. Yeah.
You should know what you are, right? The other thing is, at some sense, have an idea. Like, I want to go back probably after a year, or at some point, do I have a desire or not? See, it will change very dynamically. Once the child is there, my God, I don't know very many people who want to say, oh, let me just not be with this cute little thing. That will always happen, right? Yeah. But some idea that at some point I would like to go back, right? And then you start building your processes and systems accordingly, right? The one very basic thing that I've personally found is, if you are living by yourself and there's nothing else which is there, I think in one aspect, make your life, something should start getting gradually easier, right? Because the kid will take a lot of time. And I feel like the important, urgent, like they say, this thing of understanding you need to get comfortable with the idea of, let's say, outsourcing some part of it, right? Yeah. And gradually being comfortable that if I don't have the support through a family, there will be some other kind of support I need to seek, right? So that entire ecosystem of, say, like a japa or a nanny or help is an ecosystem, thankfully, in at least, I see in Delhi NCR being very prevalent, which is amazing. Yeah. I find that very surprising, by the way. In Bangalore, it's not as much, but could just be very region specific. I don't want to presume, but a lot of my friends still don't have that. So I feel like being comfortable.
And how are they managing?
I think nobody has, at least in my view, in my circle, people don't have japa. So I don't know how they're managing that. But I think nannies as a system is getting comfortable. I think it's very cultural as well. Is where North in general has been a lot more comfortable with this ecosystem and setup. I see a lot of other cities kind of now getting a lot more sort of comfortable. But that's just my sort of personal view on
I
this.
have no point of view on
Yeah,
that. Okay.
yeah. So I think kind of circling back to that point, in the first very thing is having the support system and what you require. Some part I think would be good to outsource, which means a nanny help, somebody else in the household to start easing some little part of it. Having some POV on a return time. Like most of my conversations when I was speaking to women on that was that they didn't have a POV. They thought they'll return back to work, hum 6 months ke baad chale jayenge. Most of them said that, and they didn't know that they were working towards something. See, it's always good to have some bit of an endpoint if that's an ambition you carry. If you don't, that's okay. But if you do, then you have to work backwards from there in some shape or form. I feel these are some conversations one should have. But if you really ask me, I think pre-kid, post-kid, you'll have a very different view of how you want your career to be. I think it's better done post-kid than done pre-kid. Is my personal view on this.
I would like to add just maybe two things which specifically have worked for me, and I see it work for a lot of my friends also around. One is setups and consistent setups. Like for example, and this was also suggested by a friend, a very well-wishing friend, that we got the nanny when Riva was a month old. That's about it. And she has been the same nanny. So consistency helps. I mean, if you have the same person, slowly and steadily you build more trust with the person, etc., etc. And of course, you have to get very lucky to be able to get that right in the first place. But I think consistency helps. Having the same ecosystem, having the same tar guard, having the same maid, having the same cook, having the same whatever, etc., etc., whatever your help support system is, that helps because slowly and steadily you end up trusting a little more. So that was one. I think the second fundamental thing which I have spoken to a lot of mums with myself is that please do not assume that because you are a mother you can do a lot more than the father, or there are clear rules that okay, father can only do this much and you can do only that much. Like to a level that when I was exclusively breastfeeding, during that time also I would make sure that I'm getting my sleep, because I would wake up in the night once, feed her, pump and keep it for the next lot, and the next lot my husband is getting up and feeding her. So how do you still prioritize yourself and not have that inhibition at all? That, you know, for example, bathing, I don't think a man can do because it might be very, his hands might be rougher on the skin, whatever. So not having those kind of misconceptions at all. Of course, the partner wanting to step up and you having the confidence in your partner 100% to do things together. I think that changes a lot. Like too.
So I think amazing on the nanny bit, like I feel that's the dream, but that's also a very difficult dream to achieve. I don't know, we've changed 3 nannies and they've stayed at a stretch for about 2.5 years, but very difficult to achieve, right? Which then you have to look for vectors. Perhaps if this is not being static, what else can you make static? What else can be more predictable, right? The one thing that was very interesting for me, like I have a very dear friend who stays in the same apartments as us, both husband and wife. One of them is a founder, one of them is actually a photographer, so very hectic schedule. Is this ecosystem that so they are also a nuclear family, and there is an ecosystem that they have of similar age parents around. And there was a situation where they were, by the way, they had to go to an event in Udaipur, both husband and wife, and they had to leave the kid. Generally, the parents would fly down, but they couldn't. So they had this very dear friend bunch of people, and for a day, the kid slept there.
That's so nice.
Right? And that's the level. So you have to see, at the end of the day, there is no other bottom line than saying support system. That support system can change. What is that in your view, right? Like if I had to take the sort of key word is have a support system. There has to be somebody else besides you and your partner.
Right.
Let's start with the basic and saying it's just not you as a mother, it's also the partner. And if that's all, there has to be more and more people. It is a village. At the end of the day, it will take so many people to make this work for you if that's the ambition that you carry. But for that, if like just the nanny is not something that you're comfortable with, or if that's not static, find what else that might mean. It could be a friend that you're very dear with, or relatives. You need to find one more trustworthy person where at least a level of being okay with the fact that my child is going to be well taken care of has to be something that you sort of build around. The other bit that you mentioned about the parent also I feel is very important. So with us, day one things started, we were very sure that, and they say like touch decides how much time is spent. Like the reason why the child would naturally gravitate to the mother, and that's science, right? But the child also has to recognize the father's touch,
Yeah.
has to recognize that there's one more person that's very dear in my ecosystem.
Yeah.
And a lot of people don't do that. They consciously say, oh, I have to take care of the kid, so I'll feed. They will just do skin to skin with just the mother, and we didn't do that. We had equal time that I spent with Tiswa, as did Udit as well. And they have a fun. They have like they're a little bunch of like 2 people now.
That's so
and
nice.
yeah,
Yeah.
And she's older. She's 6.5 years
Yeah,
now, and they have
yeah.
their own little situations where Udit and Tiswa are a group together. But I feel like that has to be seeded from together,
Yeah.
from day one, right? You can't be at a place to say a year down the line and go back to work, and then suddenly expect your partner will start taking
I
care
agree.
of it. They have to be comfortable from day one, right? There's a very interesting sort of study that I read where a lot of men felt after 2-3 years that they were closely bonding with the child. A lot of them didn't feel like the child, because they said that the child doesn't recognize me. And what it came back to is that because there was this idea of saying that the child was naturally not going to you and is going to the mother to feed, they kind of gradually stopped engaging and interacting. And it was once they started walking and talking when they started gravitating towards the father as well.
And I think that is where, of course, fathers have to take that extra effort.
For sure.
But also, moms have to be comfortable with it. I mean, if I suddenly after a year start expecting that, why are you not doing more, etc., etc., and he hasn't gotten time for the whole year to really build that skill up, then it's a little unfair. So also being comfortable with that idea that, he can take care. Traditionally, men haven't, but it's not that they can't. They can very much.
Yeah, for sure. See, it's parenthood is 2 of you all together.
It's 2 of us,
To
finally.
that point
Yeah.
before, it takes 2 to really make this thing work and happen well together. So, yeah.
You also spoke about how companies can create systems which are more flexible, fractional hours, for example, those kind of things. Now, let's say if somebody has been able to figure out all of this, they are saying that, okay, I want to go back to work. It could be after some X number of years, but they feel that I'm not ready for it, for whatever reason. How do they still do it? This is like, okay, these are the things that you have to do, but how do you do it?
Correct. So honestly, this exact question was the reason why I decided to start the entire. It was called the project Ask Me, by the way. It started because women were like, I have a desire now. My kid is older. I do want to go back. I just don't know how. I apply on LinkedIn, but nobody responds. Like that's what I heard everyone say invariably. I keep applying on LinkedIn and I get no response. And then we started unraveling and we figured out, let's get the tools to get women back to work. So essentially, the entire program that we built out was actually broken into 2 steps, which then, depending on the complexity, moved to like multiple other steps. The very first one was really helping them understand and assess their expectations of work, right? A lot of them said flexible work hours. So if you apply to a company that's saying that you have to work for 8 hours, Monday to Friday, come to office, you can't expect flexibility and then feel disappointed, right? So you need to be very clear in who you're reaching out to. So what sort of a setup are you looking for? Are you comfortable in saying, I want to go full blown to a 40-hour work week, or I'm seeking something where fewer hours, a lot more flexibility? So once you're sure, then look at those outlets as well. Once that was decided, then we used to work. We figured like a lot of them were using CVs which were super old. Then one of the most basic activity was literally kind of going back to the basics and saying, oh, let's get this piece of paper, which is honestly a little bit more crucial, getting back in order, because a lot of, especially like I spoke about, tech was one skill that we see was coming back again and again and again, and a lot of the skills of what they'd worked on were not even reflecting. It was like 4 years old CVs, right? So then we went back to the basics on saying that, okay, let's start putting this one basic paper in place, which is reflective a little bit more of this. Wherever we felt like the gap was longer than a year and a half. So generally 15 months, I felt like 15 to 18 months, a lot more openness. The moment we exceeded a year and a half, the openness at the company's end started getting a little lesser, where they felt like the skill gap will be extremely high. So then we started upskilling them. So we said, whoever's lesser, let's work on getting your CVs in place. Let's make sure that your expectations are right. You have to target correct. These are the companies that make sense. So we would do that research. We would also help them in interviews. Was one of the things that we figured. Honestly, I felt like I was advising them a lot more and building their confidence a lot more than I thought I would be doing. It almost felt like a personal counseling session where we said, don't forget the individual that you were, a couple of years before. You're exactly the same person. The context is different. You are just a very different individual from a POV of now being a mother as well. But please don't forget, right? And there would be times when we would just talk about skills and they would just break down and say, I feel so underconfident. I can't speak. I took an interview where I kept on mumbling. They kept on using the word mom brain, mom brain. I said, please don't demean yourself and
I
use
know,
words like these.
I
They
know,
are,
I know.
they don't exist. Probably, I'm sure there will be some scientific
Oh my
reason for
God,
a short
this
period of
is
time, but don't undermine your own
this is
ability by
so
saying
right. I
that.
mean, I keep hearing this mom brain word,
Yeah.
and it irritates me so much. I
Yeah.
mean, what is this mom brain? We are just better. I
Yeah,
mean, there's no
that's just
way.
women's way of just saying that let me be okay with me not getting the output I want in life. So I don't. So I started telling them please stop using this word, and then a lot more was confidence building, right? And then we would start slow and say if these are the 5 companies you want, let's start interviewing, prepping you for interview. So that was one part. The moment women exceeded say a slightly longer tenure, then we started working with upskilling. Then we said please take some courses. What are you interested in? One of the very interesting part was a lot of them wanted to repivot. Want to say I don't want to go back to what I was doing before. I want a different kind of thing, right? You've taken a pause, which is anybody who's taken a pause for work to say, okay, let me try something more
Yeah, they
interesting.
have gotten the time to figure
Exactly.
things. Yeah.
So
yeah.
then we started, in fact, during that point in time, you know, your Behance and all of these kind of platform had just started coming up. So we said, okay, start taking these small gigs, these small projects there. So we started building up their confidence and started seeing if there is another potential career trajectory for you. One very very important aspect is please call out a career break to be a career break. What my sense was, a lot of feedback I got from companies is that a lot of women were hiding that they had taken breaks. So they would take breaks when you would have the conversation, it would not reflect anywhere, but when they started having, there was a trust deficit.
Of course.
Right? You have to own it a lot more than you're doing at this point in time. The moment you're always coming at a position of, let's say, a slightly back position, the moment you say, I'm hiding, you're feeling like you're being guilty and shameful of the fact that you've taken a career break. So you have to own it perhaps a little bit more. You'll get a lot more respect by companies. Companies are very woke these days.
Hearing this, I almost had goosebumps, honestly. I mean, I love how fundamental it is. You were solving for all of the fundamental things. It also gives me a very good perspective of, I mean, basic things like confidence. That's so true. You actually, I think what you're solving for is your own confidence eventually. And because your skill hasn't reduced. You are either that skilled or maybe more with time. But it's all about the confidence and what you convey. Very nice, very nice. Gives me a lot to think about.
Awesome.
One last thing, Niharika. See, you have worked very closely with people, and doing all of this has given you a lot of time and access to be able to, build people. And building people is a very fundamental block of building a company. So, how does all of this now reflect today in what you're doing?
Interesting question. I hadn't thought of it like that. See, I feel at the end of the day, especially when you build your own stuff, right? And you're building in a category the way we are building Cumin, right? It's in a space that's very functional. And if we don't build a value add, technically somebody will say why, right? So the nuances of understanding what does Akriti need. The fact that Akriti is a very discerning parent, but Akriti has a partner who loves cooking, right?
Yeah.
How do I bring that messaging out to both of y'all in a way that tells that y'all are parents who care, right? We are catering to a bunch of people understanding their absolute minute problems, right? We understand that a woman might not have a lot of time now, a modern Indian woman might not have a lot of time to spend in the kitchen, but she's extremely careful of what she's putting in front of her kid, right? It's a parent who's valuing, let's say, health more than they're saying that 1,000 or 500 rupees makes all of that difference. So all of these insights of understanding women, mothers, modern parenthood, challenges, all of these were things honestly subconsciously have now incorporated into the way we are shaping up Cumin as well, right? Like for me the biggest eye opener was I assumed, and that's just my sort of naivety, was that most mothers are going to be like me. If I'm from the same college or same setup, they will think and behave like me. And once I started doing this entire sort of project, I figured that everyone has so much context. The way you have grown up, your parents, your partner, all of it will shape the kind of, your the way you will parent. And all of these insights we've now taken into, how we have built Cumin to say, if I had to be relevant to somebody, let's say, who's not cooking and cleaning, but cares about the final output, how do we articulate? What do we say? We don't want to make it very cliched and say, maa ke haath ka khana. It is not. It is like in your case, in your household, it is the dad के हाथ का खाना. I'm sure they must be something unique.
Cook के हाथ का
Correct.
खाना.
Cook के हाथ. हमारे घर में तो majority of the time the cook is making, right? Does that make us any less of a parent who don't have a decision to make in this? So I feel like these nuances really help in shaping the way we looked at our TG, the way we've built the messaging, the way we are kind of speaking of the value proposition of the product.
That's brilliant. That's brilliant. What is harder, asking for help or accepting help?
In my case, I think sometimes accepting help. I think I ask for help, but sometimes I feel like I have this thing to do a lot more, which I think I'm learning over time as well, to step back, delegate, be okay. If you've asked for help, the next thing will follow.
I love the fact how genuine you are,
Yeah.
honestly. One thing you said you would never do as a mum, but now you do daily.
I felt like I'll be a lot more, perhaps a lot more sort of, I don't want to use the word helicopter parent, but I thought I'll be very like into, just always ensuring that I'm double checking everything as a parent. And I think my sort of parenting style has evolved to kind of giving my child a lot more space. Like
Yeah.
I'm realizing that kids are, and they for sure are, so much more smarter and intelligent than we give them credit to be.
Yeah.
And I feel like that's been one very interesting style of parenting that I've seen myself develop into, where I'm giving her space. She's growing into an individual. I'm trusting the fact that she's developing a sense of judgment, which I didn't assume would be the case when I thought I would be a mother.
I think, yeah, children do surprise you. I think my peers expected me to be, a parent who would be like on top of everything, and I'm not at all that. So it's a surprise for them as much. I think more of it is a surprise for me as well, but a good surprise. What is your biggest working mom survival hack?
Support system. There is no other hack besides that.
One thing your partner does that instantly makes life easier.
I think he becomes a partner, which is what he's supposed to be. I think if you view it equally, I think your job is done.
Yeah, true. And this is like a anyway a must have. It's not something which is one thing you miss about your pre-kid life. Anything that you miss about your pre-kid life?
Actually, we don't. We have very beautifully tried to incorporate whoever we were as individuals before into this. We
Yeah.
used to love traveling. I think Tiswa did her first trip when she was, I think, 3.5 months old. She continues to be, and thankfully she's developed into like a little bit of a travel junkie of
Oh,
sorts.
nice,
Yeah. So I
nice.
feel like we very consciously, we felt like we don't want to be one of those parents who'll be like, we'll do all of this later. So I felt like we have very consciously tried to ensure that the child is part of your life. Otherwise, you'll just end up feeling just, oh, I miss that, I miss that. We didn't want to lead that life.
That's so nice. I mean,
Yeah.
that's the whole philosophy why we built Loopie,
Yeah,
by
yeah.
the way. So, one thing women should stop feeling guilty about.
I think to say that I want this, like I want, is a statement. You should have more statements that start with I want. It's important. Demand, command the fact that I want help. I want to have a nanny. Like it was amazing the number of people came back and said there's so much stigma with having a nanny in my
Yeah.
house. We've never had one. Traditionally only mothers and everyone has. And you should be okay. You are in a very different setup. You're living a very different life. So be okay with saying a lot more of I wants. You'll get the life you want if you ask for it.
But okay, great chat, Niharika. I loved knowing you. I loved knowing your thoughts. I think I resonated with it so much that I enjoyed the conversation a lot. Turning to work is not just about getting back to work after a maternity leave and so on and so forth. It is a lot about you. It is about your own confidence. It is about your own identity. It is about how Niharika also said during the podcast that it is about you being happy, you being a happy parent and your child being a happy child, effectively, right? So hopefully this was able to give some context in how do we do it, how do we ease it out, etc., etc. And of course, it's a choice. It's completely your choice. But anywhere you think that we could be more helpful, please drop your comments and we'll try to get back with maybe more answers. If you liked it, please like the video, share it with your other friends who might need it, and subscribe to the channel. Thank you. Thanks a lot.